The auctioneer's hammer came down with a sound that shattered 20 years of my life into pieces. I signed the papers that would hand over my cafe to strangers by Friday. That's when I saw them. Two men in expensive suits walking through my door like they owned the place. Which, frankly, at this point, maybe they did too. Tell us your city, hit subscribe, and get ready for today's story. Let's start. Let me back up and explain how a woman who once sheltered a homeless family during the worst blizzard in decades ended up losing everything because her own son decided to forge her signature on loan documents. Because that's exactly what happened to me, Claire Morrison. And if you think you've heard stories about betrayal before, honey, you haven't heard anything yet. It started in 2005, 20 years ago, when I was 35, and still believed that good deeds came back to you threefold. I had just opened Morrison's Cafe on Maple Street after my husband David left me for his secretary, because apparently that's what men do when their wives spend too much time building something meaningful instead of stroking their egos. The cafe wasn't much. Just 12 tables, a kitchen the size of a closet, and dreams bigger than my bank account. December of 2005 brought the kind of blizzard that shut down entire cities. 3 feet of snow in 2 days, power lines down, emergency shelters overflowing. I was closing up the cafe around 9 when I heard scratching at the back door. Not like an animal, but desperate, human scratching. I opened the door to find a woman in her 30s, thin as a rail, holding the hands of 2 boys who couldn't have been more than 8 and 10. They were all soaked through, shivering so hard I could hear their teeth chattering from 5 feet away. "Please," the woman said, her voice barely a whisper. "My boys, they're so cold." Now I should have called social services, should have directed them to the proper authorities. But looking at those 2 little faces, blue with cold and wide with fear, I did what any decent human being would do. I let them in. "Come on," I said, stepping aside. "Let's get you warmed up." The woman's name was Sarah, and her boys were Marcus and David. She'd been evicted from their apartment 3 days before the storm hit. No family, no friends, nowhere to turn. They'd been sleeping in her car until it broke down 6 blocks from my cafe. I set them up in the cafe's back room, brought them hot soup and sandwiches, gave them every blanket I could find. Sarah cried while she ate, apologizing over and over for imposing. The boys just stared at me like I was some kind of miracle worker for offering basic human decency. They stayed for 6 days while the city dug itself out. 6 days of watching those boys slowly trust me enough to smile, laugh, play games with the salt and pepper shakers while their mother looked for work. Sarah helped me in the kitchen, insisted on earning their keep even though I told her it wasn't necessary. When they left, Sarah pressed a crumpled piece of paper into my hand with an address written in careful handwriting. "If my boys ever make something of themselves," she said, tears in her eyes, "I'll tell them about the angel who saved us when nobody else would." I tucked that paper away and forgot about it. Life moved on. The cafe grew. I hired staff, expanded the menu, became a fixture in the neighborhood. David remarried and moved to California. I raised our son Tyler alone, poured my heart into both the business and being the mother he needed. Tyler seemed like a good kid growing up. Made decent grades, stayed out of major trouble, helped at the cafe on weekends. But somewhere along the way, he developed his father's gift for charm and his grandfather's taste for shortcuts. By 25, he was smooth-talking investors, always working on some big deal that would make us both rich. I should have paid more attention when he started asking me to sign routine business documents. Should have questioned why he needed my signature on loans for equipment I didn't remember ordering. But he was my son, and he had inherited his father's ability to make everything sound reasonable, profitable, necessary. 3 months ago, I found out that my trusting maternal nature had cost me everything. Tyler had forged my signature on multiple loan documents, convinced lenders that I was expanding the cafe into a chain, that I was good for hundreds of thousands of dollars. He'd taken every penny and disappeared, leaving me with debt I could never repay and a reputation in ruins. The foreclosure notice came last week. The auction was today. In 3 days, Morrison's Cafe would belong to someone else, And I'd be starting over at 55 with nothing but the clothes on my back and a broken heart where my trust used to be. That's when the universe decided to play its hand. The two men in suits had been standing by my counter for 5 minutes, just watching me pack up my personal photos and the last of my mother's china. Tall, well-dressed, confident in the way that comes from never having to worry about money. The older one, maybe 40, had dark hair and the kind of strong jaw that belonged in business magazines. The younger one, mid-30s, had lighter hair and eyes that seemed familiar somehow. "Excuse me," the older one said. "Are you Claire Morrison?" I looked up from my box of memories, wondering if they were here about some final debt I'd forgotten about. "Depends who's asking," I said, because 20 years of running a business teaches you not to admit to anything until you know who wants to know. The younger man stepped forward, and that's when I saw it. Something in his eyes that made my breath catch. "We've been looking for you, Mrs. Morrison, for a very long time." I set down the photo I'd been holding and really looked at these two men, feeling something stir in the back of my memory like dust being disturbed in an old attic. The younger one had eyes the color of winter sky, and when he smiled, I saw something that made my heart skip. "I'm Marcus," he said quietly, "and this is my brother David. We used to be a lot smaller when we met you." The world tilted sideways. Marcus and David, Sarah's boys, the two little faces that had haunted my dreams sometimes, wondering if they'd made it, if they'd found their way to something better than sleeping in cars during blizzards. "Dear God," I whispered, sinking into the nearest chair. "Marcus? David? But you were just—" 8 and 10, David finished, his voice warm with something that might have been affection. "It's been 20 years, Mrs. Morrison. We never forgot you." I stared at them, trying to reconcile these polished, successful-looking men with the scared, hungry children I'd sheltered. Marcus wore a suit that probably cost more than I made in a month. David's watch caught the light, definitely not something you picked up at the local department store. "How did you find me?" I asked, still struggling to process this impossible reunion. "We've been looking for you for 10 years, Marcus said, pulling out his phone and showing me what looked like a professional investigation report. "Ever since we were in a position to properly thank you." David laughed, but not in a mean way, more like he was remembering something precious. "Do you know what you did for us? Really?" I shook my head, feeling foolish. "I gave you soup and a warm place to sleep. It was nothing." "Nothing?" Marcus's eyebrows shot up. "Mrs. Morrison, you saved our lives, literally. The temperature that week dropped to -15. If you hadn't taken us in—" "But more than that," David interrupted, "you showed us what kindness looked like, what it meant to help someone without expecting anything in return. That week changed everything for us." They told me their story then, these two men who had once been my frightened little refugees. After leaving my cafe, Sarah had finally caught a break, a job at a small accounting firm that led to better opportunities. She'd worked 2 jobs to put them through school, never letting them forget the woman who had given them hope when they had nothing. "Mom died 3 years ago," Marcus said quietly. "Cancer. But she made us promise to find you, to thank you properly." David reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope, thick and official-looking. "She also made us promise to repay what she called her debt to you." "There's no debt," I said quickly. "I didn't help your family expecting repayment." "We know," Marcus smiled. "That's exactly why we're here." I opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a cashier's check with so many zeros I had to count them twice. $2 million. $2 million. "This is impossible," I managed. "I can't accept this." "You can, and you will," David said firmly. "Mrs. Morrison, we're not the same scared kids you helped anymore. Marcus runs a tech company worth about $50 million. I own 3 construction companies across 2 states. This isn't charity, it's justice." "But how did you know about my situation? About the cafe?" Marcus looked slightly embarrassed. "We've had a private investigator keeping tabs on you for years. We wanted to help sooner, but we also wanted to respect your privacy. When we learned what your son had done, we couldn't stand by and watch someone destroy the woman who saved us," David finished. I looked at the check again, then at these 2 remarkable men who had grown from the children I'd helped. My cafe was supposed to be auctioned off in 3 days. This money would not only save it, but secure my future for the rest of my life. I don't know what to say, I admitted. Say you'll let us help, Marcus said. Say you'll let us prove that sometimes good things really do come back to you. David moved closer, and for a moment, I saw the 8-year-old boy who used to help me stack napkins. Say you'll let us call you family, because that's what you've been to us all these years, even when you didn't know it. I was crying now, ugly tears of relief and gratitude and disbelief. For months, I'd felt abandoned, betrayed by the son I'd raised and trusted. Now here were these two men, offering not just financial salvation, but something even more precious, proof that the love and kindness I'd given away hadn't been wasted. There's one condition, Marcus said, his voice taking on a businesslike tone that reminded me he was indeed a successful CEO. My heart sank a little. Of course there was a condition. We want to be part of your life moving forward, not as charity cases you helped once, but as the family we should have been all along. David nodded. We lost our mother. You clearly can't trust your son. Maybe we can be the children who actually deserve you. I was about to answer when the cafe door chimed again. A familiar figure walked in, and my blood turned to ice. Tyler, my son, the one who had stolen everything and disappeared 3 months ago, leaving me to face the consequences of his choices. He looked thinner, tired, but still carried himself with that entitled confidence that had always been his trademark. His eyes went immediately to the check in my hands, then to Marcus and David, calculating. Mom, he said, flashing that boyish smile that used to melt my heart. I've been looking everywhere for you. We need to talk. Marcus and David had gone very still, their friendly demeanor shifting into something protective and dangerous. Who's this? Marcus asked quietly. That, I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me, is my son Tyler, the one who forged my signature and stole my life savings. Tyler's smile faltered for just a moment before sliding back into place. Mom, that's not how it happened. Let me explain. No, I said, standing up with the check still in my hands. Tyler, meet Marcus and David, two people who actually understand what loyalty means. But Tyler's eyes had locked onto that check, and I could practically see the wheels turning in his head. The same calculating look he'd had when he convinced me to sign those loan documents. That's when I realized this reunion was about to become something else entirely. Tyler's charm offensive kicked into high gear the moment he saw that check, and watching him work was like watching a snake prepare to strike, fascinating and absolutely disgusting at the same time. Mom, I'm so glad you have visitors, he said, moving toward us with that easy confidence that had fooled me for years. I came back to make things right between us. Marcus and David exchanged a look that could have cut glass. 20 years in business had clearly taught them how to recognize a predator when they saw one. Make things right? I repeated, my voice dripping with all the sarcasm I'd been holding back for months. You mean like when you made things right by forging my signature on loan documents? Or when you made things right by disappearing with every penny I had? Tyler's face scrunched up in that wounded expression he'd perfected by age 12. I know how it looks, but I was trying to help. Those investments would have paid off if the market hadn't crashed. I lost everything too. Bullshit, David said quietly, and something in his tone made Tyler take a step back. Excuse me? Tyler turned to face David, his fake charm slipping just enough to show the entitled brat underneath. I said bullshit, David repeated, pulling out his own phone. We had you investigated 3 months ago. You didn't lose anything. You spent $400,000 in Vegas and invested the rest in a cryptocurrency that you knew was fake. The color drained from Tyler's face. You had me investigated? Who the hell are you? We're the people who care about your mother's well-being, Marcus said, stepping closer, which apparently puts us in a very small club. I watched this exchange with a mixture of pride and heartbreak. Pride because these two men, who owed me nothing, were willing to stand up for me. Heartbreak because my own son was standing there, calculating how to manipulate the situation to his advantage. Look, Tyler said, switching tactics, I don't know what kind of con you're running here, but my mother is vulnerable right now. She's not thinking clearly. That's when something inside me snapped. Vulnerable? I laughed, and it was not a nice sound. Tyler, honey, the only thing I'm vulnerable to right now is the urge to slap that fake smile off your face. Marcus snorted with laughter. David grinned. Tyler looked shocked that his sweet, trusting mother was showing some backbone. 3 months ago, I continued, my voice getting stronger with each word, you cleaned out my accounts and disappeared. You left me to face creditors, lawyers, and bankruptcy proceedings alone. You let me believe I was losing everything because I was stupid, incompetent, too old to understand modern business. Mom, I'm not finished, I said, and Tyler's mouth snapped shut. For 3 months, I've been beating myself up, wondering what I did wrong as a mother to raise someone who could betray me so completely. I gestured to Marcus and David. Then these 2 men show up, 2 people I helped for 6 days 20 years ago, and they've spent a decade looking for ways to repay a kindness I'd forgotten about. Your own mother, Tyler. I raised you for 25 years, and you repaid me by stealing my life. Tyler's eyes kept darting to the check in my hands. How much is that for? The question was so blatantly greedy, so perfectly Tyler, that I almost laughed again. That's none of your business, I said. Like hell it isn't. I'm your son. I'm your heir. Whatever arrangement you have with these strangers affects me. David stepped forward, and suddenly the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Did you just call yourself her heir? I'm her only child, Tyler said, puffing up like he was claiming territory. You're the child who stole from her, Marcus said coldly. Where I come from, that usually disqualifies you from inheritance considerations. Tyler turned back to me, desperation creeping into his voice. Mom, they're trying to manipulate you. They show up right when you're getting money, offering to be your new family. It's textbook con artistry. You're right, I said, and Tyler's face lit up with triumph. Someone is trying to manipulate me. Someone who learned I was in trouble and came running back, not to apologize or make amends, but to get his hands on whatever money he could find. Tyler's face went red. That's not... I love you, Mom. I made mistakes, but I came back to fix them. No. You came back because you heard I might have money again, probably from one of your gambling buddies who saw the investigator asking questions. Marcus cleared his throat. Actually, Mrs. Morrison, there's something else you should know about your son's recent activities. He pulled out a thick folder from his briefcase. He's been using your name and the cafe's reputation to run advance fee frauds, convincing investors that Morrison's Cafe is expanding, taking deposits for franchise opportunities that don't exist. The folder contained emails, bank records, testimonials from victims. Tyler had been using my reputation, my name, the business I'd built, to steal from other people. You've been scamming people using my cafe's name? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Tyler's swagger finally cracked completely. I needed startup capital. I was going to pay everyone back when the real investments paid off. There are no real investments, Tyler, David said. There never were. You're just a gambling addict who's been stealing from everyone who ever trusted you. I sank back into my chair, feeling older than I had in years. Get out. Mom, get out of my cafe. Get out of my life. You're not welcome here anymore. Tyler's face cycled through anger, disbelief, and finally calculation. You can't cut me off. I'm your son. You stopped being my son when you forged my signature, I said. Marcus and David have shown me more family loyalty in one afternoon than you've shown me in your entire adult life. This isn't over, Tyler said, his mask finally slipping completely. I'm not going to let 2 strangers steal my inheritance. There is no inheritance, I said. Not for you. Tyler stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. In the silence that followed, I realized I was shaking. Marcus knelt beside my chair. Are you okay? I think so, I said, though I wasn't entirely sure. That was harder than I expected. He'll be back, David warned. People like him don't give up easily. I looked at these 2 men who had appeared in my life, like a gift from the universe. Then at the check that would change everything. Then at the cafe that had been my whole world for 20 years. Then we'd better be ready for him, I said. But even as I spoke, I couldn't shake the feeling that Tyler's threat wasn't idle. He'd stolen from me once already. What would he do now that he knew I had money again? The next morning, I woke up in my apartment above the cafe, feeling like I'd been hit by a truck carrying a load of emotional baggage. The check from Marcus and David was locked in my safe, but I could still barely believe yesterday had actually happened. My phone had been buzzing since 6 a.m., with calls from a number I didn't recognize. Probably Tyler, calling from different phones because I'd blocked his main number years ago. Some people never learn that persistence isn't the same as persuasion. I was making coffee when I heard voices downstairs in the cafe. Loud voices, angry voices. One of them was definitely Tyler. I grabbed my robe and headed downstairs, wondering who he was arguing with at 7 in the morning. Through the window, I could see Tyler gesticulating wildly at Marcus, who was standing with his arms crossed, looking remarkably calm for someone being yelled at by a man having what appeared to be a complete breakdown. I unlocked the front door just in time to hear Tyler shouting, "You can't just swoop in and steal someone's mother." "Good morning to you too, Tyler," I said dryly. "I see you're handling yesterday's revelations with your usual maturity." Tyler spun around, his face red and his hair disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. "Mom, thank God. I've been trying to call you all night." "I know. I heard the phone ringing. I chose not to answer it, which in grown-up language means, 'Leave me alone.'" Marcus stepped forward. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Morrison. We arranged to meet here this morning to discuss the cafe renovations." But he was waiting for us. "Renovations?" Tyler's voice went up an octave. "What renovations?" "Mom, you can't make major decisions about family property without consulting me." I blinked slowly, the way you do when someone says something so spectacularly stupid that your brain needs a moment to process it. "Family property?" I repeated. "Tyler, sweetheart, yesterday you were prepared to let this place be auctioned off to strangers. Today you're claiming it as family property? That's different. Yesterday I thought you were broke." The honesty was breathtaking. "Really? Most people try to at least pretend their motives aren't completely mercenary." David appeared from around the corner carrying a box of pastries and coffee cups. "I brought breakfast," he announced, then stopped when he saw Tyler. "Oh, you're back. I'm back because someone needs to protect my mother from whatever scam you're running." "The only scam here," I said, accepting a coffee from David, "is the one where you pretended to be my loving son while stealing my life savings." Tyler's face crumpled into that wounded puppy expression that used to work so well when he was 8. "I made a mistake, Mom. A big mistake. But I'm your son. That has to count for something." "It does count for something," I said gently. "It counts as the reason this hurts so much." Marcus opened his briefcase and pulled out a stack of legal documents. "Mrs. Morrison, we took the liberty of consulting with some attorneys yesterday evening. If you're serious about accepting our help, we need to make sure your assets are protected." "Protected from what?" Tyler demanded. "From you," David said bluntly. "From anyone who might try to claim they have rights to money they didn't earn." Tyler's face cycled through several emotions before settling on righteous indignation. "I have every right to be concerned about my mother's financial decisions. She's always been trusting to a fault. Trusting enough to believe her son wouldn't forge her signature on legal documents," I agreed. "Clearly, that was a fault. One mistake doesn't erase 25 years of being your son." "You're right," I said, and Tyler's face brightened with hope. "It erases 25 years of me believing I'd raised someone with integrity." Marcus cleared his throat. "Mrs. Morrison, there's something else we need to discuss. Our investigation turned up some additional information about Tyler's activities." He handed me a manila folder. Inside were photographs, bank records, and what looked like surveillance reports. "He's been staying at the Grandview Hotel downtown for the past week," Marcus explained. "The room is being paid for by a woman named Jessica Chen. She's been helping him research your financial situation and plan his approach." I looked at the photographs. Tyler entering the hotel with an Asian woman in her 30s, both of them laughing like they didn't have a care in the world. Tyler at expensive restaurants while I'd been eating ramen noodles and wondering how I'd pay rent. "Who is Jessica Chen?" I asked. "A professional con artist," David said grimly. "She specializes in helping people manipulate elderly relatives out of their money." Tyler's face had gone completely white. "That's not, she's just, we're friends. Friends who researched your mother's business records. Found out about our investigation and planned this whole reunion strategy." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Interesting friendship." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "You knew they were coming. You knew Marcus and David would find me." Tyler looked like a cornered animal. "I didn't know anything for sure. Jessica just said there might be people from your past who could help. And she suggested you come back right now with this touching story about wanting to make amends." "I do want to make amends." "You want to make amends with my money," I corrected. "Tyler, Do you understand what you've done? You didn't just steal from me. You turned me into someone who can't trust her own judgment, who questions every kind gesture, who wonders if everyone around her has ulterior motives. Tyler started crying then. Real tears this time, not the crocodile variety he'd perfected as a child. I'm in trouble, Mom. Real trouble. I owe people money. Dangerous people. How much money? 200,000. I closed my eyes. Of course. Of course it wasn't just greed driving this reunion. It was desperation. I'm sorry, I said quietly. Tyler's face lit up with hope again. You'll help me? No. I'm sorry that you're in trouble, but I'm not helping you anymore. I'm sorry that somewhere along the way I failed to teach you the difference between consequences and problems. Your gambling debts are consequences, Tyler. You earned them. They're not my problem to solve. They'll hurt me if I don't pay them back. Then you'd better find a way to earn $200,000 honestly, I said, because the Bank of Mom is permanently closed. Tyler looked at Marcus and David with desperate eyes. Please, you have to understand. If something happens to me, it'll destroy her. If something happens to you because of choices you made, David said coldly, that's called justice. Tyler left then, not storming out this time, but walking away like a man who'd finally realized he'd burned his last bridge. I watched him go and felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. Are you sure about this? Marcus asked gently. He is your son. He's my son, I agreed. But you're my family. And sometimes we have to choose which one matters more. David smiled. In that case, family meeting. We need to talk about how to keep you safe while Tyler figures out his next move. Because something told me Tyler wasn't done trying to get his hands on my money. And if he was desperate enough to work with a professional con artist, he was desperate enough to try almost anything. 3 days later, I was sitting in the renovated office above my cafe, reviewing architectural plans for the expansion Marcus and David had proposed, when my new security system alerted me to movement downstairs. It was 10 o'clock at night. The cafe had been closed for hours, and I definitely hadn't given anyone permission to be down there. I checked the security monitors David had installed and felt my blood pressure spike. Tyler was in my cafe with 2 other men I didn't recognize, large men who looked like they'd learned their people skills in prison. I reached for my phone to call the police, then stopped when I heard voices through the floor. Clear, angry voices that were probably meant to intimidate me into coming downstairs. I know you're up there, Mom, Tyler shouted. We need to talk. Mrs. Morrison doesn't want to talk to you, came Marcus's voice from somewhere near the front door. Apparently, my new family had the same kind of security alerts I did. I heard the sound of chairs scraping across the floor downstairs. Tyler's companions were making themselves comfortable, which suggested this wasn't going to be a brief conversation. My phone buzzed with a text from David. Police on the way. Stay upstairs. Door is reinforced. They can't get to you. Another text. This one from Marcus. Recording everything for evidence. I felt a surge of gratitude for these 2 men who'd appeared in my life like guardian angels with law degrees and security backgrounds. Mom, Tyler called again. I know you can hear me. These are my business partners. They're very interested in meeting the woman who owes me money. She doesn't owe you anything. Marcus's voice was closer now, probably just inside the front door. One of Tyler's companions, a man with a voice like gravel in a cement mixer, spoke up. Kid says his mama stole money that was supposed to pay us back. Says she's got millions now. I closed my eyes. Tyler had told his loan sharks about the check. Of course he had. Your boy owes us 200 grand, Gravel voice continued. Plus interest, plus fees. We're not leaving without payment. Then you're not leaving, came David's voice from what sounded like the kitchen. Because the only person who owes you anything is Tyler, and he doesn't have access to Mrs. Morrison's money. See, that's where you're wrong, Tyler said, and I could hear the desperate edge in his voice. She's my mother. Legally, I'm her heir. If she dies, I inherit everything. The silence that followed was so absolute I could hear my own heartbeat. Did you just threaten your mother's life? Marcus asked, his voice deadly quiet. I didn't threaten anyone, Tyler said quickly. I'm just explaining legal reality. If something happened to her, naturally, I'd inherit her estate. Tyler, I called down, my voice carrying all the disappointment and disgust I felt. Are you seriously suggesting that your loan sharks should hurt me so you can inherit money to pay them back? I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just trying to find a solution that works for everyone. That's when I heard the most beautiful sound in the world. Police sirens getting closer. Shit, said Tyler's other companion. You said this was going to be simple. It is simple, Tyler said frantically. She has the money. She gives it to me. Everyone wins. Except your mother, who'd be out $200,000. She doesn't owe anyone, David pointed out. The sirens were getting louder. Tyler's companions were getting nervous. I could hear them moving around downstairs, probably looking for another way out. Mrs. Morrison, Gravel voice called up to me. Your boy owes us money. We don't care where it comes from, but we're getting paid. Then I suggest you take that up with Tyler, I called back, because his debts aren't my responsibility. Lady, you raised him. You made him think he could borrow money he couldn't pay back. The accusation hit me like a physical blow. Was this my fault? Had I somehow taught Tyler that other people would always bail him out of his mistakes? Then I heard Marcus's voice, calm and clear. Tyler Morrison's gambling debts have nothing to do with his mother. She didn't co-sign for them. She didn't benefit from them, and she doesn't owe you anything. If you threaten her again, you'll be dealing with more than just the police. Who the hell are you to tell us anything? I'm someone who believes in protecting innocent people from parasites, David answered. The sirens were right outside now. I heard car doors slamming, footsteps on the sidewalk, authoritative voices demanding that everyone remain calm. Through my window, I could see Tyler's companions trying to leave through the back door, only to find more police officers waiting for them. Tyler himself was standing in the middle of my cafe with his hands raised, looking like he'd finally realized he'd made a mistake that couldn't be charmed away. 20 minutes later, I was giving my statement to Detective Sarah Kim, while Tyler sat in the back of a police car with his business partners. Marcus and David flanked me like bodyguards, occasionally adding details to my account. Will they be charged? I asked Detective Kim. Breaking and entering, criminal trespassing, making terroristic threats, definitely. Your son's looking at some serious jail time. I felt a complex mix of emotions watching Tyler through the police car window. Relief that the immediate threat was over. Sadness that it had come to this. And yes, a small, bitter satisfaction that actions finally had consequences. There's something else you should know, Detective Kim said. The woman your son's been working with, Jessica Chen, she's wanted in 3 states for elder fraud. We've been tracking her for months. Marcus nodded. She's already been arrested at their hotel. Apparently, she had detailed files on several elderly targets, including Mrs. Morrison. So this was all planned, I said. It wasn't really a question. From the moment we started looking for you, David confirmed. They've been monitoring our investigation, planning Tyler's approach, researching your vulnerabilities. My vulnerabilities, I repeated. The phrase tasted bitter. Detective Kim closed her notebook. Mrs. Morrison, I have to ask, do you want to press charges against your son? I looked at Tyler through the car window. He was staring at me with an expression I couldn't read. Fear, maybe, or regret, or just anger that his plan hadn't worked. Yes, I said quietly. I want to press charges. Marcus squeezed my shoulder gently. You're doing the right thing. I know, I said. It just doesn't feel right. As the police cars pulled away with Tyler and his associates, I stood in front of my cafe with these 2 remarkable men who'd become my family in less than a week. What happens now? I asked. Now, David said, we make sure you're safe. We finish renovating the cafe, and we start living like the family we chose to be. And Tyler? Marcus's expression was grim. Tyler learns what consequences look like. Maybe it'll be the education he never got growing up. I nodded, feeling lighter than I had in months. Tyler was finally gone, facing the consequences of his choices. The cafe was saved. I had family again, real family, who'd proven their loyalty without expecting anything in return. But as we walked back inside, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't really over. Tyler was facing jail time, but Jessica Chen was a professional. She probably had backup plans, other angles, other ways to get what she wanted. And what she wanted was my money. 2 weeks after Tyler's arrest, I was learning that peace of mind is a luxury I'd forgotten how to enjoy. Marcus and David had moved into the apartment next door. For security purposes, they claimed. though I suspected it had more to do with the fact that we'd all discovered what it felt like to have real family again. The cafe renovations were proceeding beautifully. New equipment, expanded seating, a proper office system that didn't involve shoebox filing. I was actually making money for the first time in years, which felt surreal after months of wondering how I'd afford groceries. But Jessica Chen was still out there somewhere, and Detective Kim had made it clear that professional con artists don't give up easily just because one plan fails. I was reviewing vendor contracts in my new office when Marcus knocked on the door, his face wearing that serious expression that usually meant trouble was brewing. "We need to talk," he said, closing the door behind him. "David's on his way up. We've got a problem." My stomach dropped. In my experience, conversations that start with "we need to talk" rarely end with good news. David appeared a moment later carrying his laptop and wearing the same grim expression. "Jessica Chen made bail yesterday. How is that possible? Detective Kim said she was being held without bail." "She had help," Marcus said, opening a folder thick with documents. "Someone posted $500,000 for her release. Someone with very deep pockets and apparently no concern about helping a wanted criminal." David opened his laptop and showed me a series of photographs that made my blood run cold. Jessica Chen walking out of jail, getting into a black sedan, talking on a phone with an expression of pure calculation. "There's more," Marcus said grimly. "She's been making phone calls from jail, lots of them, to numbers we can't trace, but the patterns suggest she was coordinating something." I sank into my chair, feeling that familiar knot of anxiety in my stomach. "What kind of something?" "We think she's putting together a new team," David explained. "Professional criminals who specialize in elderly targets. Your case has made her look bad in certain circles, and she's not the type to let that slide. So what does that mean for me?" Marcus leaned forward, his expression serious but reassuring. "It means we're not taking any chances. We're hiring professional security, upgrading your apartment systems, and implementing protocols to keep you safe." "I appreciate everything you're doing," I said carefully, "but I'm not going to live my life as a prisoner in my own home because some woman I've never met wants revenge." "We're not asking you to," David said. "We're asking you to be smart while we figure out her next move." My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Check your email. Jay." Marcus and David exchanged looks. "That's not a coincidence," Marcus said. I opened my email on my laptop, and sure enough, there was a message from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line read, "A proposition." The message was brief and terrifying in its calm professionalism. "Mrs. Morrison, I believe we got off on the wrong foot. I'd like to propose a mutually beneficial arrangement. You have something I want, and I have something you need. Let's meet and discuss this like civilized adults. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., Riverside Park, South Bench by the Fountain. Come alone, or the offer expires permanently." "She's insane if she thinks I'm meeting her anywhere," I said. "Actually," David said slowly, "it might not be a bad idea." Marcus stared at his brother like he'd suggested I juggle dynamite. "Are you out of your mind?" "Think about it," David continued. "We'll never be safe as long as she's out there planning something. But if we control the meeting, if we have backup, surveillance, the whole thing recorded, we might be able to get enough evidence to put her away for good. Or," Marcus pointed out, "we might be walking into a trap that gets Claire hurt or killed." "I hate to interrupt this brotherly strategy session," I said, "but doesn't anyone think I should have a say in whether I risk my life to catch a criminal?" They both turned to me with identical expressions of protective concern that would have been touching if it weren't so irritating. "Claire," Marcus said gently, "you don't understand how dangerous people like Jessica can be. And you don't understand how tired I am of being protected from my own decisions," I shot back. "For months, I let Tyler make choices for me because I trusted him. I'm not making that mistake again with anyone, no matter how good their intentions are." David raised his hands in surrender. "You're right. It's your choice. But if you decide to meet her, we're going to make sure you're as safe as possible." I looked at these two men who'd risked everything to help me, who'd become the family I'd always wanted Tyler to be. They weren't trying to control me. They were trying to protect me. There was a difference. "What would this meeting involve?" Marcus pulled out his phone. "First, we contact Detective Kim. This has to be official, or any evidence we gather won't be usable in court. Second, You go in wired for audio and video. Third, we have plainclothes officers positioned throughout the park. And if something goes wrong? If something goes wrong, David said grimly. Jessica Chen learns what happens when you threaten our family. I felt a warmth spread through my chest at that word. Family. Tyler had never protected me from anything. He'd been the thing I needed protection from. All right, I said. Let's catch this woman. But even as I said it, I couldn't shake the feeling that Jessica Chen was exactly where she wanted to be, pulling the strings, forcing us to dance to her tune. Professional con artists don't make moves unless they're already 3 steps ahead, which made me wonder, what did she really want from me? And what was she willing to do to get it? The next day dawned gray and drizzly, the kind of weather that makes you want to stay inside with a cup of coffee and pretend the outside world doesn't exist. Unfortunately, I had an appointment with a sociopathic con artist, so indoor hiding wasn't an option. Detective Kim had been less than thrilled about the meeting, but she'd agreed it was our best shot at getting Jessica Chen back behind bars where she belonged. I was wearing enough recording equipment to stock a small electronics store, and there were more undercover officers in Riverside Park than actual park visitors. Marcus and David were both nervous wrecks, which they were trying to hide behind professional calm and failing miserably. Watching them pace around my apartment like caged tigers would have been entertaining if I weren't about to walk into what might be a trap. Remember, Marcus said for the 15th time, you don't have to agree to anything. Just let her talk, get her to admit to the crimes we know about, and get out of there. And if she tries anything physical, David added, the safe word is butterfly. Say that, and we're coming in immediately. Butterfly, I repeated, because nothing says help me like discussing insects. Detective Kim's voice crackled through my earpiece. Mrs. Morrison, we have eyes on the target. She's already at the south bench, alone as far as we can tell. I took a deep breath and headed for the park. Showtime. Jessica Chen was exactly what I'd expected. Polished, professional, and radiating the kind of confidence that comes from never having faced real consequences for your actions. She was probably 40, attractive in a calculated way, wearing clothes that managed to look both expensive and understated. Mrs. Morrison, she said, standing as I approached. Thank you for coming. Let's get one thing straight, I said, sitting on the opposite end of the bench. I didn't come here to negotiate. I came here to find out what kind of delusional fantasy you're living in where you think I owe you anything. She laughed, and it was genuinely amused. I like you. Tyler made you sound like a pushover, but you've got spine. Tyler made a lot of mistakes. Underestimating me was just one of them. Indeed. She opened her purse and pulled out a tablet. I have a proposition that I think you'll find interesting. I doubt it. Your son owes a great deal of money to some very unpleasant people. $200,000, plus interest and fees. The total is now approximately $300,000. Tyler's debts aren't my problem. They will be when those unpleasant people decide that targeting his family is the most efficient way to motivate payment. I felt cold dread settle in my stomach, but I kept my voice steady. Are you threatening me? I'm explaining reality, Jessica said calmly. These aren't people you can call the police on, Mrs. Morrison. They operate outside the law, and they're very good at making problems disappear. What does this have to do with you? Jessica smiled, and it was absolutely terrifying. I've purchased Tyler's debt, all of it, which means he now owes me $300,000. Congratulations. I'm sure you'll be very happy together. The thing is, she continued as if I hadn't spoken, I'm willing to forgive the entire debt in exchange for a much smaller amount from you. How much smaller? $1 million. I stared at her. You want me to pay you $1 million to forgive a debt I don't owe? You have $2 million. $1 million is a bargain for ensuring your safety and your son's life. And if I refuse? Jessica's smile never wavered. Then Tyler will have an unfortunate accident, and you'll discover that grief makes people vulnerable to all sorts of additional scams. I'm very good at taking advantage of vulnerable people. Detective Kim's voice whispered in my ear. Keep her talking. We need more specific threats on record. You seem to have thought this through, I said. I'm a professional, Mrs. Morrison. This is what I do. I identify targets, develop leverage, and extract maximum value with minimum risk. And Tyler was just your way in? Tyler was a convenient tool. Greedy, desperate, morally flexible, the perfect inside contact. Though I must admit, he exceeded my expectations when he brought those loan sharks to your cafe. That level of betrayal takes real commitment. My hands clenched into fists, but I kept my voice level. So you've been planning this for months. Since the moment I learned that Marcus and David were looking for you, two successful businessmen tracking down an old woman, that suggested money, and money always interests me. What about Marcus and David? Are they safe? Jessica's expression shifted slightly, becoming more calculating. That depends entirely on your cooperation. They've made things more complicated than I anticipated, but not impossible. You're talking about hurting them. I'm talking about removing obstacles to my business plan. Your new family seems devoted to you, Mrs. Morrison. That devotion could be expensive for them if you force me to get creative. The threat to Marcus and David hit me like a physical blow. These men had saved me, protected me, become the family I'd always wanted. The idea that they might be hurt because of me was unbearable. You're insane if you think I'll pay you anything, I said, but my voice was shaking now. I think you'll pay me everything I ask for, Jessica replied calmly, because the alternative is watching everyone you care about suffer for your stubbornness. She stood up, smoothing down her skirt. You have 24 hours to transfer the money to the account I'm about to text you. If the transfer doesn't go through by tomorrow at 2 p.m., I start collecting my debt in other ways. And if I pay you, then you never see me again. Tyler's debt is forgiven, and your lovely new family stays safe. She walked away then, confident and unhurried, like a woman who'd never doubted that she'd get exactly what she wanted. Detective Kim's voice crackled in my ear. We got it all, Mrs. Morrison. Come back to the station. We're going to arrest her tonight. But as I sat on that bench watching Jessica Chen disappear into the crowd, I couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just played us all exactly the way she'd intended to. Professional criminals don't make threats they can't deliver on, and they always have backup plans. The question was, what was her real plan? And how much danger had I just put Marcus and David in by refusing to pay her? By 8 o'clock that evening, Jessica Chen had vanished like smoke in a thunderstorm. The hotel room she'd been staying in was cleaned out, her rental car returned, and every phone number associated with her account had been disconnected. It was like she'd never existed, except for the recording of her threatening to kill my family if I didn't pay her $1 million. How does someone just disappear like that? I asked Detective Kim as we sat in the police station reviewing the day's events. Experience, she replied grimly. This isn't Jessica's first time running from the law. She's got escape routes planned, false identities prepared, probably cash stashed in multiple locations. Marcus was pacing behind my chair like a caged leopard. So what you're telling us is that she's still out there, still planning something, and we have no idea where she is or when she'll strike. That's exactly what I'm telling you, Detective Kim confirmed. Which means you need to take her threats seriously. This woman has the resources and connections to make good on everything she promised. David looked up from his laptop where he'd been researching Jessica's background. I found records of her involvement in 5 other cases across 3 states. In every case, when the targets refused to pay, something bad happened. Accidents, break-ins, mysterious illnesses, things that couldn't be directly traced back to her, but were too coincidental to be random. Mysterious illnesses? I repeated. Food poisoning that turned into organ failure. Carbon monoxide leaks that almost killed entire families. Prescription medications that got contaminated with dangerous substances. David's face was grim. She's not just threatening violence. She's threatening murder. A chill ran down my spine. So what are my options? Pay her the money and hope she keeps her word, or refuse and watch everyone I care about get hurt? There's a third option, Marcus said quietly. We disappear, change identities, move somewhere she can't find us, start over. I stared at him. You'd do that? Give up your entire life because of me? Claire, Marcus said, sitting down beside me, 20 years ago, you saved our lives. We're not about to let some criminal destroy the life you built. Besides, David added, what's the point of being successful if you can't use that success to protect the people you love? The casual way he said, the people you love, made my chest tighten with emotion. When had these 2 men become so important to me? When had I started thinking of them as my real sons? Detective Kim cleared her throat. Before anyone makes any drastic decisions, there's something else we need to consider. Jessica Chen didn't just threaten you, she committed multiple felonies on a recorded conversation. Even if she runs, even if we can't catch her immediately, this recording gives us leverage. What kind of leverage? The kind that makes other criminals think twice about working with her. Con artists depend on reputation and connections. If word gets out that working with Jessica Chen means getting recorded making death threats to police, her network starts to dry up. Marcus leaned forward. You think other criminals will abandon her? I think smart criminals will distance themselves from her, Detective Kim corrected, which limits her resources and makes it harder for her to operate. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Beautiful evening, isn't it? I particularly enjoy the view from your cafe's back window. Sleep well, Jay. The blood drained from my face. Marcus grabbed the phone and showed it to Detective Kim, who immediately got on her radio, calling for units to respond to the cafe. She's been watching us, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. She's trying to intimidate you, David corrected, but I could see the worry in his eyes. Detective Kim finished her radio call. Units are en route to sweep the area around your cafe. We're also posting surveillance. She won't be able to get close again without us knowing. Unless she doesn't need to get close, I said. Unless she's got people working for her who can get close. The thought hit all of us at the same time. Jessica Chen was a professional who worked with networks of other criminals. She didn't need to personally break into my cafe or poison my food or sabotage my car. She had people for that. We need to get you somewhere safe, Marcus said, standing up. Tonight. Where? If she's been watching the cafe, she knows where I live, where I work, probably where I shop, and what route I take to the bank. Detective Kim was already making phone calls, arranging safe house accommodations, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. Safe houses work when you're hiding from individual criminals, not from professional networks with unlimited resources and 24 hours to plan their next move. There's something else, David said quietly. If Jessica's been watching the cafe, she knows about the renovations, the new security system, the changes we've made. She's been studying our routines, our patterns, looking for weaknesses, which means she's not planning to just take the money and run, Marcus realized. She's planning something bigger. My phone buzzed again. Another text. $1 million seems like such a small price for peace of mind, especially when the alternative is so permanent. This time the message included a photo. It was Marcus and David entering the cafe that morning, taken from across the street with a telephoto lens. In the background, barely visible, was what looked like a man with a rifle scope. Oh God, I whispered. She's not just threatening us. She's got us in someone's crosshairs right now. Detective Kim saw the photo and immediately got back on her radio, calling for SWAT backup and emergency tactical units. But as I sat in that police station, surrounded by people trying to protect me, I realized something that chilled me to the bone. Jessica Chen had spent months planning this. She'd studied my family, my business, my routines. She'd positioned herself perfectly to take everything I cared about unless I gave her what she wanted. And tomorrow at 2 p.m., I was either going to transfer $1 million to a criminal, or I was going to find out exactly how creative she could get with revenge. The safe house was a modest ranch home in a suburb 40 minutes outside the city, the kind of place that screamed witness protection to anyone who looked twice. Marcus, David, and I sat around the kitchen table at midnight, staring at my laptop screen and the bank transfer page that could either save our lives or destroy everything I'd worked to rebuild. There has to be another way, David said for the 100th time. We can't just give $1 million to someone who's threatening to kill us. And we can't ignore the fact that she has professional killers watching our every move, Marcus replied. This isn't a movie, David. We don't have secret agents or unlimited resources. Detective Kim walked in from the living room where she'd been coordinating with her team. Her expression was grim. We've identified 3 separate surveillance points around the cafe. Your apartment and David's office. Professional setup, expensive equipment. This woman isn't bluffing. I closed the laptop with a snap. So what you're telling me is that my choices are pay the ransom or plan our funerals. I'm telling you that Jessica Chen has resources we didn't anticipate, Detective Kim said carefully. But I'm also telling you that giving in to extortion doesn't guarantee safety. What do you mean? I mean that people like Jessica Chen don't just take the money and disappear. They take the money, then come back for more. You pay her $1 million now. She'll want $2 million next month. David's phone rang, interrupting the conversation. He looked at the caller ID and frowned. It's my office security service. They only call for emergencies. He answered the call, his face going pale as he listened. I'll be right there, he said, hanging up. What's wrong? Marcus asked. Someone broke into my construction office. The security company says it looks like they were searching for something specific. You're not going, I said immediately. It's obviously a trap. Claire's right, Detective Kim agreed. This is classic intimidation escalation. They want you isolated, scared, making emotional decisions. But David was already grabbing his jacket. If they were searching for something specific, I need to know what they found. My office has files on every project we've worked on, including personal information about employees and their families. David, don't, Marcus started. They're threatening everyone I care about, David interrupted. I'm not hiding in a safe house while they gather ammunition to hurt innocent people. He left before any of us could stop him, which meant we were sitting there 20 minutes later when Detective Kim's phone rang with the news that David's car had been found wrapped around a tree on Highway 9, and David was in the hospital with critical injuries. The drive to the hospital was the longest 40 minutes of my life. Marcus sat beside me in the back of the police cruiser, both of us silent with the terrible knowledge that this was our fault. If we'd paid Jessica Chen her money, if we'd found another way, if we'd been smarter or faster or more careful, David wouldn't be fighting for his life because of our choices. Dr. Sarah Chen, no relation to Jessica, she assured us grimly, met us in the emergency room waiting area. He's alive, but barely. Multiple fractures, internal bleeding, traumatic brain injury. The next 24 hours will tell us whether... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Marcus collapsed into a chair like all the strength had gone out of his legs. This is my fault. I should have gone with him. I should have stopped him. This is my fault, I corrected. If I'd just paid the money, this is Jessica Chen's fault, Detective Kim interrupted firmly. Don't you dare blame yourselves for what a criminal did. My phone buzzed. Another text. Accidents happen so easily, don't they? $1 million would prevent so many more accidents. You have 6 hours. Jay. I stared at the message, feeling rage build inside me like a volcano preparing to erupt. This woman had hurt David. Sweet, protective David who'd risked everything to help a stranger. And she was already planning to hurt Marcus next. I'm paying her, I said quietly. Claire, Marcus started. I'm paying her, I repeated, louder this time. I'm not losing anyone else because I was too stubborn to give a criminal what she wanted. Detective Kim shook her head. Mrs. Morrison, think this through. If you pay her now, you're confirming that violence works. She'll escalate until she's taken everything you have. Then I'll deal with that when it happens. Right now, I need to make sure Marcus doesn't end up in a hospital bed next to his brother. I opened my phone's banking app and started the transfer process. $1 million to an account number Jessica had provided. $1 million to make the pain stop, at least temporarily. But as I entered my authentication codes, my phone rang. The caller ID showed David's number. David? I answered, confused. He was supposed to be unconscious in intensive care. Not David, came Jessica Chen's voice. Though I must say, his phone has some fascinating contacts. Did you know he's been investigating me for months? Digging into my background, tracking my associates, building quite the detailed file. My blood turned to ice. Where is David? David is exactly where you saw him, fighting for his life in the hospital. But his phone is with me, along with his laptop, his files, and all his research about my organization. What do you want? I want to show you something interesting I found in David's files. Something about your precious Marcus that you might find illuminating. She sent me a photo that made the world tilt sideways. It was a document from David's investigation, a background check on Marcus that was dated 3 months before they'd supposedly found me. According to the document, Marcus had been tracking my location and activities for almost a year. He'd known exactly where I was, what my financial situation was, and when I'd be most vulnerable to their approach. Keep reading, Jessica's voice purred through the phone. I scrolled down to find more documents, more evidence that Marcus and David hadn't accidentally found me through some investigation. They'd been planning their approach for months, studying my routines, my business, my relationship with Tyler. Your loving sons aren't who they claim to be, Claire. They're professional con artists, and you've been their biggest score yet. The hospital waiting room spun around me like I was trapped in a nightmare carousel. Marcus was staring at the documents on David's phone with an expression I couldn't read. Guilt, resignation, or maybe just exhaustion from maintaining a lie for so long. "How much of it is true?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Marcus closed his eyes. "Most of it." The simple honesty of that answer hit me harder than any elaborate excuse would have. "Most of it? We are professional investigators," he said quietly. "We do specialize in finding people with assets. We were hired to locate you and assess your financial situation." "Hired by who?" "A law firm representing an estate. Someone left you money, Claire. A lot of money. We were supposed to find you, confirm your identity, and facilitate the transfer." Detective Kim leaned forward. "What kind of money?" $12 million, Marcus said, "from a woman named Eleanor Hartman. She died 6 months ago and left specific instructions that her estate should go to the cafe owner who sheltered a homeless family during the blizzard of 2005. I stared at him. "Eleanor Hartman? I've never heard that name." "She heard your name. From Sarah, the woman you helped 20 years ago. Sarah told Eleanor your story before she died, and Eleanor was so moved by it that she changed her will." My head was reeling. "So everything you told me about being Marcus and David, about Sarah being your mother, that was all lies?" "No," Marcus said firmly. "That part was completely true. Sarah was our mother. You did save our lives. The story about the blizzard, about staying in your cafe, about what it meant to us, every word of that was real. Then why the elaborate con? Why not just tell me about the inheritance?" Marcus and David, if that was even his real name, exchanged a look that spoke volumes. "Because," came David's weak voice from the doorway, "we knew that if we just showed up and said, 'Here's $12 million from a stranger,' you'd never believe it was real." He was in a wheelchair, bandaged and pale, but somehow alive and conscious against all medical expectations. "We needed you to trust us first, to believe we were family, so you'd accept the money when we revealed the truth." "And the $2 million you gave me?" "Our own money," David said. "Advance payment from the estate. We were supposed to give you the full $12 million once we'd confirmed your identity and sorted out the legal details." I felt like I was drowning in revelations. "So Jessica Chen was right? You've been running a con on me this entire time?" "We've been protecting you," Marcus said. "The moment we started investigating your situation, we realized you were in danger. Tyler's gambling debts, his criminal associates, the people he owed money to. You needed help more than you needed inheritance money." "And Jessica Chen?" David's expression darkened. "Jessica Chen is exactly what she appears to be, a professional criminal who saw an opportunity to exploit our investigation. She's been tracking our movements, trying to figure out why 2 investigators were interested in a cafe owner with no obvious assets." Detective Kim had been taking notes throughout this conversation. "So the inheritance is real? The $12 million exists?" "It exists," Marcus confirmed. "It's sitting in an escrow account waiting for final transfer authorization. And Jessica Chen knows about it?" "Now she does," David said grimly. "She found the estate documents when she searched my office. She knows you're worth $12 million. Not 2, which means her demands are about to get a lot bigger." As if summoned by our conversation, my phone rang. Jessica Chen's number. "Mrs. Morrison," her voice was silk wrapped around steel. "I trust you've had an illuminating conversation with your boys? What do you want?" "Jessica, I want to revise our agreement. $1 million seems rather modest now that I know you're worth $12 million. Let's call it an even $10 million for my silence and protection services." "Protection from what?" "Protection from the very inconvenient truth that you're about to inherit a fortune. Do you have any idea how many criminals are monitoring estate transfers looking for exactly this kind of opportunity? Eleanor Hartman's death made the financial news, Claire. Every con artist in the country knows there's $12 million going to some mystery cafe owner." My blood turned cold. Blood turned. "You're saying there are others. I'm saying I'm the least of your problems. Pay me $10 million to make this go away quietly, or spend the rest of your life running from everyone who wants a piece of Eleanor Hartman's money." Detective Kim was frantically writing notes and making hand signals to someone outside the waiting room. She was recording this call, building a case, doing her job, but I could see in her eyes that she believed Jessica's threats. "I need time to think," I said. "You have 1 hour. After that, I start making phone calls to some very interested parties. Your choice, Claire. Pay me $10 million and live quietly with your remaining $2 million, or keep all $12 million and spend it on bodyguards, security systems, and funeral expenses." The line went dead. In the silence that followed, I looked at these two men who'd lied to me and saved me, who'd deceived me and protected me, who'd become the family I'd always wanted through a combination of professional duty and genuine affection. "So what now?" I asked. "Now," Marcus said, "we finish what we started. We transfer the inheritance. We deal with Jessica Chen. And we figure out how to be a real family instead of a professional arrangement. And Jessica's threats?" David managed a weak smile. "Jessica made one critical mistake. She threatened people we care about. That makes this personal." Detective Kim looked up from her notes. "We've got enough evidence to arrest her for extortion, conspiracy, and attempted murder. But first, we need to find her." "I can find her," David said quietly. "Give me an hour." "You're in a wheelchair with a traumatic brain injury," I protested. "I'm a professional investigator with access to resources Jessica Chen has never heard of," David corrected. "And she just threatened my family." He said the word family like it was something precious and worth fighting for, which, I realized, it was. "All right," I said. "Let's end this. Let's get my money, catch Jessica Chen, and figure out what it means to be a real family." But even as I said it, I knew Jessica Chen wouldn't go down without a fight. Professional criminals don't just give up $12 million because of police investigations and family loyalty. She'd be back, and next time, she'd be ready for us. 1 hour later, my phone buzzed with a news alert. Local woman Jessica Chen, found dead in apparent suicide, leaves note confessing to multiple financial crimes. Marcus showed me the alert with a grim smile. "David's resources are more extensive than we mentioned." He didn't kill her," Marcus assured me. "But he did make sure she understood that threatening our family would have consequences she couldn't escape." 6 months later, I was standing in the renovated Morrison's Cafe, watching Marcus and David argue about the best placement for the memorial plaque honoring their mother, Sarah. The inheritance had come through. Jessica Chen was no longer a threat, and Tyler was serving 18 months in minimum security for fraud. "You know," I told them as they debated plaque placement, "for professional con artists, you're remarkably bad at deception." They both looked at me with identical guilty expressions. "I figured out you were my real sons about 10 minutes after you walked in here," I continued. "Nobody investigates someone for months and then risks their lives to protect them unless there's real love involved." Marcus grinned. "So you're saying we passed the audition? You're saying you want us to stay?" David added. I looked around my cafe.